You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell, I'm Dave Griffiths. Our esteemed producer, Matt Adams, is being held out for at least a week or two. There's, if you're in central Indiana, you are familiar probably with the Delphi trial going on right now. So all hands on deck there in the newsroom for that.
That does trump what we do.
It does, to be fair, to the community as a whole. So a significant story, a dramatic story, to say the least. So Matt's going to be needed out there for some time, but we'll figure it out. I hope we figure it out in the meantime. It looks like we are for the time at least. And it is Texans week, first place in the AFC South on the line for the Colts as they travel down to the house that T.Y. Hilton built there in Houston, trying to get a win over the Texans.
Have you done the tiebreakers in case the Colts win? Who would have the lead?
I have not done that yet. I have not cared about
good.
that yet.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. I do my best. We'll recap last week's win over the Dolphins for sure. Some next steps taken in the Hall of Fame vote, and a couple Colts are still included in that list. And we will start, though, with some news from around the league and some Colts-centric news first, that the Colts are going to play the NFL actually wants, Chap, to put the Colts in prime time. Who would have thunk it? They're putting the Vikings game in Week 9, November 3rd, on Sunday Night Football.
The only thing that makes sense is, again, if the Colts find a way to win Sunday, then the league sees they're legit, which we still don't know yet. I think with the Colts, they're legit. But it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the other options were. I know the way you probably have a better idea how the networks can protect games on their schedule so they wouldn't get rid of whatever team are playing. I just think what they should have is a drinking contest, and every time the announcers mention 33-0, take a shot.
There you go. Perfect.
And you'd be drunk early.
Exactly. They might have Jeff Saturday on the field to honor him at halftime.
I wasn't going to say that because I like Jeff, but you're right about that too.
I can make the joke about Jeff. You've built up a great relationship with him and many other Colts over the years, which also, by the way, we will mention the Colts did rename the media room at team headquarters this week, the Mike Chappell Media Room. I'll say my part. We don't need to get into this because I'm sure that you will have absolutely none of me going more than 2 minutes on it, is that I've been honored to work with you the past couple years here at Fox 59 CBS 4. And I think everyone who's listening to it has been impacted by your work on the Indianapolis Colts. They're grateful for it. And that Indianapolis sports has been greatly impacted by your work in general. So thank you for what you have done over the years. And it is a small token from the Colts to show their gratitude for your professionalism and your impact on Indianapolis sports. So I'm glad to be alongside you, Chap.
All I'll say, thank you. All I'll say is I'm one of those fortunate people who you probably consider yourself the same, where I found something, a career that I like to do, that I'm good at, and they let me do it and they pay me. So many people go to work every day, they hate their job. I'm not one of those. And, I was stunned. We're sitting there on a normal day and Matt Conti opens the door and my wife comes in. I'm thinking, I did say something, but it was cool, and yeah, it's cool. I was overwhelmed, and just on a personal thing, and I said it there, is my biggest fan was always Angie, and she would have probably made a scene with Arsenio Hall, whoop whoop. So greatly appreciated, and I don't take that lightly.
All right, good deal. Let's return to this flex schedule. You mentioned that there is there's some chicanery kind of behind the scenes when it comes to the flex schedule.
And I don't understand it, but right. There is.
I'll explain a little bit very briefly here so you all can understand it back home too. Between weeks 5 and 10 in this season, Sunday Night Football can flex a game that was previously scheduled for the 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock windows. They can do that twice. So twice in 6 weeks there, weeks 5 to 10. Weeks 11 to 17 or 18, I guess, 17. Any flexes are at the NFL's discretion. This could be week 18. This might be an old version from that I copied, but the rules are still the same. And the networks, Fox and CBS, they can protect one of their games every week. Okay. So they can say, CBS says, this is our game, you're not taking this game. Fox says, this is our game, you're not taking this game. So NBC can't take that. And that happened once already this year. NBC tried to flex the matchup between the Commanders and the Ravens on October 13th. So 2 weeks ago, they tried to get that game, but it was blocked by CBS. They chose to block that effort.
So the Colts probably were the third choice.
Right. they could have been the second choice on one network, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So like the top two choices were both on CBS,
Gotcha.
you know? So yes, that's what it comes down to. There was a game, there was a Cowboys game. It was like Cowboys Falcons or something that could have been interesting. There was a Lions game that could have been interesting.
They're not giving up a Cowboys game.
Exactly.
I don't care if it's
exactly
9 o'clock at night.
Right. And that's why the Colts-Jets game, there's some speculation maybe the NFL flexes that game out, but why would you flex Aaron Rodgers out of primetime? He's still interesting, even if the Jets are not as a team. So, and the Colts could keep winning, and maybe the Jets turn things around with Devontae Adams there. It certainly didn't happen last week. We'll put it that way. But anyway, that's all we'll get into with the flex scheduling because this is a Colts-centered podcast. And but nevertheless, November 3rd, Colts-Vikings. It replaces Jaguars-Eagles, by the way, because nobody wants to see the Jaguars in primetime, unfortunately. They have not lived up to any sort of...
London got to see him twice.
Exactly. That's payback for taxation without representation. Still sending it back their way.
Hold a grudge.
50 modern-era players have advanced in the voting process for the Pro Football Hall of Fame consideration for the year 2025. The Colts on that list include Reggie Wayne, Robert Mathis, and also Jeff Saturday and Adam Vinatieri, along with Cornelius Bennett, who was briefly a Colt near the end of his career, too.
Simeon Rice.
There you go. Simeon Rice as well.
For like 5 games.
Thank you, Chap. Yes. I would rely on you to fill in the cracks here.
And he got a sack here.
He did.
They ran back to him, and he sacked the guy.
There you go.
So
we'll take it.
Yep.
But nevertheless, that's just the next step in the process as it's continually whittled down. Is it these 50 guys? It gets cut down to 15, and then
50 to 25, and then to 15.
Semifinalists.
So we have another.
Right.
I don't know that that's made public. I hope it's not because there's not much. And then down to 15, and the 15 we'll get together in late December, early January somewhere, and have our meeting and figure out the class of 2025. Five of these guys, modern era, a maximum of 5 will make the team. And
we'll have plenty more discussion of that when it gets closer, but certainly wanted to mention it as well. Relevant to the Colts because they just played the Dolphins last week. Tua Tagovailoa is back in practice.
Good for him.
You played him at the right time.
Play every game now, bud.
Yep, exactly. Welcome back. Stay healthy. Play the rest of the year. And that's it's been a strange situation with Tua. Just because strange, I use for different because so many other players in the NFL have had a concussion or have 2 concussions. With Tua, it happens every year.
Has he had 3 documented in the NFL?
I believe so, because he had at least 2 before, and then this one now.
Because that doesn't include that weird situation in was it against Buffalo when they said it was a back.
Right.
When he was obviously woozy.
Very much so. Back injury.
This is such a difficult situation. We're watching Anthony Richardson on Sunday with his injury, however you want to call it. And we starts running, I'm thinking, get down. And then get up.
Mm-hmm.
With Tua, aren't you going to hold your breath every time he gets hit?
Every dang time.
You can, I remember how, was it this past offseason, he went through some kind of karate or judo to better fall.
Yeah, I think it was judo or something like that, taekwondo.
Well, that sounds great until you're in the middle of something trying to, avoid getting smacked, and then you forget all those lessons. And it's a violent sport. He's going to get lit up again. It's just because he plays quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's in a sense, it's like heartbreaking because his mom has asked him to stop playing, or I don't know exactly how strong that has been, but there have been reports that his mother has been kind of at the forefront of people in his life of you should reconsider playing NFL football. And that's, for a player, is just such a hard decision to make based on, because it's ingrained in you to do this.
You're a football player.
You are. That's
you
what
don't want
you
to be
are.
defined by that, but that's what you are right now. And I saw some quotes from him to where I don't know how much he himself has ever considered retirement, but he said I'm a competitor. I play football.
Mm-hmm.
He said something like I'd die for this sport.
Mm-hmm.
Well, come on now. Let's get your priorities straight.
Right. And I think this is I don't mean to go deep into this because it's something we've done in the past, but it's a difference between Andrew Luck and some other guys in this sport. Andrew was wired differently. He could step away from it mentally, and you could debate all the ins and outs of that. Other guys, whether it's Tua or other players who like just battle through injuries. DeForest Buckner, I think, is a good example, who has an injury seems like every week. Peyton's another one.
He was going to play until he couldn't play.
Exactly. And there was no talking him out of it one way or the other.
It's amazing that Buck has missed 5 games
in his entire career.
Right, because he plays. That's what he does.
Yep. He might be limited some weeks, but doggone it, he's going to be out there if he can. So yeah, Tua back in Miami.
I hope for the best for him, but
Likewise.
Quarterbacks are going to get hit.
The Tennessee Titans are sellers.
What are they doing?
If it wasn't obvious before this week, it is obvious now that DeAndre Hopkins is at least in the process. I don't know right now if that's been completed yet, but at least earlier in the day, it was still in the process of finalizing a deal to send him to the Kansas City Chiefs. It would be for a 5th-round pick next year that can become a 4th-rounder if the Chiefs reach the Super Bowl and Hopkins plays 60% of the snaps with Kansas City, which is not a small number for a wide receiver. No. Like, that's a fair number to have him out there. So a 5th or a 4th rounder, say goodbye to DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee is also going to pick up $2.5 million of Hopkins' remaining $8 million salary to get him out of there. The Titans have also traded linebacker Ernest Jones IV to Seattle for another linebacker, Jerome Baker, and a 4th-round pick. So Titans have said, you know what, this ain't it, Chap. We're going to have our eyes set further on the future than this year.
That's why I didn't understand what they were doing in the offseason.
Yep.
They signed Jamal Adams,
yes,
safety, and Quandre Diggs. And more.
Yep.
And older veterans, and you're thinking, that's what a team does who believes they're just real close to competing. And now here they are dumping. I don't understand. I didn't understand at the time because they had made it clear they were moving on and they were going to get younger and they were in transition. And they're doing this. I don't know where they're going. I thought maybe they had a chance to turn things around, although I've never believed in Will Levis. I just don't. And if he's not the guy, they're dormant for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
Because you got to find, and you've wasted 2 years with him. But yeah, I don't understand what they're doing. But hey, keep doing it, and then there won't be any serious competition in the standings.
Colts will be very happy for them to keep doing what they're doing right now. And if we're talking about another former Tennessee Titan, Derrick Henry, who they decided not to resign after last year.
I understand.
Yeah, me too.
What they did. But
you understand what they did with him. Maybe you don't understand what they did with the decision after they went with him.
They didn't bring back Tannehill.
Right.
Well, because you had Levis.
Right.
But boy, Derrick Henry, holy smokes. He's on pace for the single season record.
That's right. 2105 is the record set by Eric Dickerson in 1984.
Was it his rookie year or second year? It was early.
I don't think it was his rookie year.
Okay, it was his second year, their 3rd year then.
Yeah. And it's a 40-year-old record now, for crying out loud. Derrick Henry's on pace to break it just by 15 yards right now. So he's like basically on pace through this many games of the season, however many they played in Baltimore.
He did absolutely nothing the other night.
No.
And then he goes 80.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And that's what he does. I'm stunned that he's playing at this level. I don't think he gets a record because I just don't think they're going to wear him down like that. Although when you have like 10 carries for 140 yards because you have an 80-yarder, it helps. But he is in the absolute perfect situation.
Yep.
As is Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
It's we'll see. They're going to have to beat KC, which they haven't really done when it matters. But I am stunned by Derrick Henry and what he's doing, and good for him. He's a great player, so good for him.
If you believed in Derrick Henry, this could be like the most predictable outcome ever, because we were talking, Chap, last year, rewind a year and a month or two ago, when Jonathan Taylor and the Colts were butting heads about a contract. What was the one team that everyone was like, you know where Jonathan Taylor would fit really well? Baltimore.
Yep.
The Ravens. Why is that? Because you put him alongside Lamar Jackson and dangerous things happen, which is, of course, right now why the Indianapolis Colts remain high on putting Jonathan Taylor in the backfield with their own mobile quarterback in Anthony Richardson.
And it just hasn't happened yet for an extended time. Again, we both talked. We were in the group talking to Taylor today. He gives you not a lot. You were talking with someone about, I didn't hear the total thing about, well, do you expect to play or whatever? And he talked about something. Well, I don't want to get into negativity or whatever. But
did
you
wants
think
to manifest positive vibes or whatever? He didn't say that exactly, but he did talk about manifesting good things.
That's like Mr. Miyagi putting hands on when your knee hurts.
Wax on, wax off.
But I don't know. I think there's a good chance he plays. I think there's a real good chance Buck plays. He practiced for the first time yesterday in 5 weeks.
Yep.
And Taylor's missed 3 weeks. And these are only their 2 best players on offense. You can argue if you want, but who are you going to put above Buck?
I'm not going to argue you.
And who are you going to put above Taylor?
I'm not going to argue.
But I was looking because I get crazy on stats, but with Taylor, this team averages about 134 yards rushing a game. Without him, it's like 102. And that's with like 3 big games with Zach Moss. Remember, Zach was pretty good before Taylor came back. So he's just a difference maker, and the things that he can do. Goodson had a couple of good runs the other day. I think he finished with like 50-some yards. What would Taylor have done with some of those holes that Goodson has? So difference maker. He's we were talking before the air that like with Richardson, he needs to play and finish extended times, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. So does Taylor. He's missed like 16 or 17 games now since that he led the league. You have to have availability, and hopefully they have that going forward.
Yep. New York Giants owner John Mara says their general manager Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll, their jobs are safe looking into the future.
Vote of confidence.
How about that? Great vote of confidence from the owner.
Well, he said that through the season.
He did. Well, I thought it was for next year too.
I'll go back and look at that. Okay.
It sounded like that. Well, it's definitely through the season.
Right.
We'll put it that way. I thought it was for next year.
You may be right.
But and here's the deal: they were 6-11 last year. They are 2-5 this year.
They're awful,
and they just got embarrassed by the guy they let walk, Saquon Barkley.
Did you see the video of Sirianni going to him?
Yes.
On the sideline.
I did.
He needed 13 yards.
13 yards to set his own personal best in the NFL, Saquon.
And I applaud for Sirianni for going to him, and I applaud Barkley for saying, nah,
let the young guys eat, I believe is what he said.
And he's probably thinking, I beat these guys down enough.
Right.
Because he's got friends on that. He's got friends on the Giants. But I think that's pretty cool. And the Giants are a dumpster fire with, I don't know where their future is.
Yep.
Because they have no quarterback past Jones to build on.
And that's like you find a quarterback and you want to go all in on the quarterback because you want to give him the best possible chance to succeed, right?
Right.
And that's the situation the Giants found themselves in. It's a cutthroat decision to move on from a quarterback. The Texans moved on from Ryan Tannehill, even though he was a better than average starter over his time there in the NFL. And you could argue that it was dipping for sure near the end of that. But like the Browns decided to move on from Baker Mayfield. And what has that done for them lately? And Baker Mayfield is
Would they like to have a mulligan on that?
Right, in Tampa Bay, doing some pretty good work. Like the Eagles moved on from Carson Wentz, and now there's questions if they're going to move on from Jalen Hurts. I think those are a little premature, personally. But anyway, like you move on from a guy, and it's a hard decision.
But you can't stick too long with him because the rest of your team's getting old.
The best decision that I can think just over my years is the Chiefs moving on from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. And they believed in Mahomes when a lot of teams didn't. Smith was playing at a Pro Bowl level, honestly, in his final years in Kansas City, and led them, I believe, to the playoffs as well. So that was taking a quarterback who you thought was still good and moving on to a guy that you thought could be what he is now.
Right.
It is maybe the hardest decision for an NFL franchise to make is when you have a quarterback that is good, do we stay with him? And how can we best enhance his best characteristics? And the Giants undeniably have not done that with Daniel Jones. I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is a great quarterback. I am saying the Giants have completely bungled that situation there.
Around him.
Yes. And Daniel Jones has been worse because of it. And I mean, if you're a Colts fan, you're watching these things that happen around the league. Hopefully, if you're a Colts GM like Chris Ballard, you can take lessons for what is happening elsewhere and be like, let's learn from this and not let this happen here in Indy.
Well, because again, if you're wrong on your quarterback, the Cardinals and Murray, I mean, he sort of got the big contract before a lot of guys did, and now you've got Tua with the big contract.
Yep.
And
Trevor Lawrence
and
with a
Trevor
big
Lawrence,
contract.
and do you know you want to believe that? But right now the Jaguars are, there was until they beat New England, they beat up New England.
Congratulations.
In London, so great. So, but yeah, if you're everyone is so captive to the quarterback, that's why the Colts have got to be right on Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
And if they are, let's say he just takes off, and next year he's the guy, and then it comes time for the contract. And what are we talking when that time comes? $60 million? I mean,
it's not going to be cheap.
And you better. It's funny. I still remember. We might have mentioned this, but I remember talking to Irsay after the Andrew Luck thing, and he said, I just can't believe he would walk away from $250 million. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, in a few years, that's what we're going to be paying quarterbacks, and here we are.
Yep.
$250 million sounds like a lot, and it is. $250 million sounds more.
Yes.
Because you got a B in there. So you've got to, I think Houston, I really like where Houston is. I really do. They're set up really well with the young quarterback, young receivers. I mean, Diggs isn't young. And they've got young difference makers on defense. I like where they are.
Got an elite left tackle there protecting the blind side.
Boy, if you had to name like 3 spots, quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher.
They got them all.
And then, by the way, you got Nico Collins, which fortunately won't be here.
Fortunately,
right,
will not be playing.
Right. So, but you've got to be right on the quarterback, and if you're not, we've been through that. You cannot be a successful franchise by year to year. Who's our quarterback? Doesn't work.
The Colts quarterback right now is Anthony Richardson. He is back in the lineup as the Colts beat the Dolphins 16-10 to climb above 500 for the first time this season. 4 wins and 3 losses for the Horseshoes. In that 16-10 win, Matt Gay kicked 3 field goals, ultimately the difference maker, really, and down the stretch to be able to hit. There were shorter field goals in the second half. His first
52.
Kick, boom. How about that? Like, I'm sure that he felt the weight of it going out there because you know what had happened previously.
He had missed his last 2 or 3 50-yarders, I think it was, going back to last year.
So if you're a Colts fan, you got to love to see that. Him just go out and get one between the uprights.
You held your breath, though, didn't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you could feel it. Everyone was holding their breath up in the press box like, what's going to happen here?
You've got to have trust in your kicker.
Yep.
I went back and looked, and every one of their games this year is one possession. They were 7-3 last year in one possession games.
That's pretty good.
And that's going to come down to whether that's that kick at the end of the first half or one at the end of the game. You got to. I remember Pat McAfee, and he's talking about Vinatieri. He said, this guy, every time he's on the field, points hang in the balance. Mm-hmm. That's a huge responsibility. That's not the case with Quentin Nelson.
Nope.
When he goes out there.
Nope.
So, but that's what he signed up for. He went through a difficult, a lull because of what was it, hernia surgery.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's one. And again, this team we'll get into it, but they're 4-3 with all the injuries. Everybody has injuries. Everybody does. But these guys have lost, 7, 8, 9 players to at least, players.
Like we said earlier, the best player on offense,
right.
The best player on defense.
And also Kwity Paye and Taekwon Lewis and Samson Ebukam, Kenny Moore, guys that have missed at least 2 games. And here they are at 4-3, and we'll get into it. That's why Sunday, if they could find a way, then good things can happen. Better things can happen.
The defense allowed 0 second-half points in this game, forced 2 takeaways as well. And the backups really shined out there with Segun Olubi, or Shegu, I believe is how it's pronounced.
I thought it was Segun.
Shegu. That's
yes. There's no H in it.
I know there's no H.
Well, then don't do that.
Well, that's what it is. And you know what? This is yet another Colts linebacker changing his name pronunciation.
Oh, really? See, all I need to do is spell the darn thing.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't whatever.
When they had Ben Ut here, I loved it because it was like 6 letters, and I can't screw it up.
Perfect. Well, he had a forced fumble and the fumble recovery there. And Grant Stewart, the always a special teams ace, but I believe the Colts credited him with 18 tackles. I saw on ESPN it was credited as 19. So
well, but they're including his special teams tackle.
There we go. Boom.
That's when you hear that. But it was 18
on defense.
Third tied for third most since 1984 at least.
Yep.
It's the most in the league this year.
Yep.
By a guy who had been on the field for 0 defensive snaps in the first 6 games.
How about that? And it was the most for the Colts since Shaq Leonard had 18, and that his second game in his career against the
at 19
against
19
Washington. I don't know if they were the Redskins or Commanders back then. Who knows? In 2018,
or the football team.
They had to be exactly. They're the team from Washington. So congratulations to both of those guys who shined when the spotlight was on them.
And we've all done stuff on Grant Stewart, but just a guy who's motivated by what he's been through. He's been shaped by a really rough upbringing. His mom's battled addiction. His dad's been in and out of prison, and what he's come through. He said, football is where I felt safe and where I felt I had an identity. Mm-hmm. And it's just what he did is not sustainable. And it was a perfect game because they're not going to throw the ball that much. Right. You're not going to have your linebackers covering. I don't want to see Grant Stewart covering a running back or a tight end.
Right.
But what he gave him is exactly what you want in a backup. It's what Trey Sermon's given you. It's what
Tyler Goodson.
Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson have given him. That's what you do, but it's not sustainable. I, with all due respect, I don't want to see Grant Stewart playing 80 snaps 5 games in a row. Right. I just don't. And if they get the EJ Speed back this week, he won't. But that's what you want when your number's called. You don't get many opportunities, so maximize them.
On the other side of the ball, Anthony Richardson delivered a game that was a game.
Go ahead. I was wondering where you were going.
He completed 10 of 24 passes, which was 41.6% completion percentage, the worst of his career, the worst for an Indianapolis Colts quarterback since the early 90s, I believe, is what I saw. And only 129 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions.
There you go.
Fine. 14 carries for 56 yards, an average of 4 yards per carry. How would you characterize that game, Mike, since I'm the one with the microphone over here, and I can ask you, our Colts reporter and analyst.
I mean, here we go. What's the word that we've
unsustainable.
There you go. You can't. They've won. It's funny. I wasted 10 minutes after the game trying to find out when's the last time the Colts won a game when their quarterback completed 10 passes. And I'm thinking, it's got to be. Well, I thought it went back to your guy.
My guy.
Carson Wentz completed.
He
was 5 for something against New England. 5 for 19. Whatever it was.
Yeah, when Jonathan Taylor had a great game.
Right, but the last time it happened was in Week 3 against Chicago.
So it's just
he was
year.
10 for 20. It's just not. You can't win. You normally can't win in today's NFL with your quarterback being so unproductive throwing the ball. Now the run game, I think they finished with 155 yards.
Yep.
But that's with 56 from your quarterback. But I say, but that's what the Ravens do.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some stat they've outrushed every opponent this year by 100 yards.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Ridiculous.
But that's because you've got Derrick Henry going for what he does, and then Lamar Jackson throwing in 50, 60 yards. So that's why it's so imperative for Taylor and Richardson to be on the field. Taylor's return, hopefully, it won't. I don't think it'll impact the pass game. I mean, I don't. He's not a major threat in that regard. But Richardson has got to be better at getting the ball from point A to point B. They've got too many good receivers. Josh Downs, he had 0 targets in the first half.
The entire first half.
And then they come out. It may have been the first play of the third quarter, and it was a
little screen
for
swing
nothing.
Screen
for nothing.
Exactly.
So, but he's too good for that. You know, we saw it can't be a Flacco thing. I mean, because he was the guy with Flacco.
Yep.
So, but you got in Pitt. Again, Richardson had 120. What was it?
129 yards.
And 33 came on that play at the end. Was the end of the half, or the end of the game, where it's 33 yards to Pitt.
Yep.
So you've got to have sustainability because again, it's not. You can't continue to win games like this, especially with the teams they're facing who are going to put points on the board.
Do you think 14 carries for Anthony Richardson is a good number to aim for at this point of his career? Is that too many? Is that too few?
I think it's a bit high.
Okay.
Last year, I thought that his 2 the busiest games were when he started and finished. He had 10 carries each game. I think that's about right. Although you can say 10's your target, but then you get.
If you're having a game like this, maybe you need a few more.
Well, and a couple of them were on scrambles where I don't know how he got out of the sacks. He just shrugged people off. But design runs, the RPOs, 10's a good number. And when you get Taylor back, we'll see, because again, when it works right, something's going to be there for one of them. Mm-hmm. There should be a good option for, and then it's incumbent of Richardson to figure out which the play to do. But people say, well, you got to really protect. This is what he does.
Yep.
You just, again, I found myself saying, okay, good, get down, now get it, because I'm always looking for him to get up.
Right.
And one time he didn't get up very quickly, but it was because he was pointing for a first down.
He was doing this celebration that he kind of was kneeling sort of and pointing forward. I thought the same thing you did.
Would you get up, stand up, and then do it? But no, he's got such a big guy. He's fast. You've got to use him, but there is a balance, and a lot of the time, not really a lot of time, all the time, it's on him to know when a play needs to be over and avoid hits that a couple times he hasn't done.
Fall in love with 2nd and 4, like that.
Right.
Like that's my advice to him. Like, fall in love with 2nd and 4.
Well, the one he got hurt on, it was, I don't know if it was,
he'd already got the first down.
It was something in 10, and he got 14. Go down after you get 12.
Yep.
I've joked they won't do it. Put a shot collar on him, and have Steichen have it. And when it's enough, you just. I'm not saying electrocute the guy. Give him just a little jolt to know that, okay, go down. Please. They won't do it, but they should.
Dallas Clark joins the Ring of Honor at Lucas Oil Stadium, right alongside the name of Reggie Wayne, who, of course, he played alongside for years.
That was cool placing.
It was, very much so. 9 years here with the Colts, more than 600 catches in his career, thousands of yards, touchdowns upon touchdowns, important catches, big moments. Was a guy who was a first-round pick who, in the same vein as Dwight Freeney, was different than other tight ends, or defensive ends for Dwight's case, in the NFL at the time. He was more of a pass catcher. He was less of a blocker, though he certainly could block occasionally when it called for it. Chap, what's going to be, we talked about Dallas a little bit before, but what's going to be your overarching memories of Dallas Clark and his impact on this Colts team when all is said and done for him?
Two different things. My lasting impression is different from his impact, because it was rookie minicamp, and here's this kid from Iowa, and he comes out of the locker room, and he's got every pad on they had. Rib pads, shoulder pads, obviously, and hip pads, and all that stuff. And he even had the fullback collar, the collar roll. Mm-hmm. And he bumped into Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning started taking pads off of him. You don't need these. We want you for speed, and go get some smaller shoulder pads. But he was the one of the pieces. I talked to Tom Moore. One of the missing pieces to that offense. We've seen what a tight end, whether it's Mark Andrews, who's not built like Clark, but the Kittles and the Kelseys and what those guys do, and the stuff that when you've got Reggie and Marvin and Ed Stokely and Ed Edgerton in the backfield, what they could do with Dallas Clark down the field. Now, he paid the price sometimes. He had, God love him, Peyton would lead him into those safeties, and he'd make the catch and then suffer the consequences. But great player, well-deserved. And it's funny, I talked to him that week. He was going into the ring, and he was out in his farm. He's got a farm in Humble, Iowa, and he was harvesting. It was time to harvest the corn.
It's that time of year, man.
Yes.
Like, you can call him in to get his name up in the rafters, but you better get it at the right time of year.
That's what he said. It takes about 2 days on 180 acres. And I said, that's a pretty big farm. He said, no. To be a farmer, it's like 3,000 acres. Yep. I said, holy smokes. But great guy. The best thing is he's got his health. Gosh, remember a couple of years ago, he participated in that triathlon.
Yep.
Great guy. And then the discussion would be who's next. Who are you putting in there next?
You still keep asking for some of the old timers.
Yeah, they're not ready for that.
Exactly. I don't think they're going to.
So
I think Bob Sanders has got to be pretty darn soon, don't you?
You need to put Bob in before you go to the TYs.
Yeah, 100%.
TY needs to go, and then we'll see what the time off Andrew Luck is.
We'll see what the temperature of the water is for Andrew Luck.
That'll be interesting.
Yes, it will.
Bob Sanders, and again, that'll be one where such a short career. When I think of players, if not for injuries, what? He's there. He and Andrew Luck are at the top of my list of what would have happened, what could they have done had injuries not impeded what they've done.
Yep.
And congratulations to Dallas. And Jim Irsay had, for the players that came into town, there were probably 20 or 30 of them. They had a private dinner. I think it's St. Elmo's, and I can only imagine the stories that they told. And it's always great when they bring these guys back, because it reminds people that what to strive for. Mm-hmm. You don't strive to be 9-8. You strive to be what they were. Gosh, every year, I go back and say during that stretch, Cato Jr. was here for 4 years, and his worst season was 12-4. That's ridiculous. But that should be the standard you're striving for.
Are they going to fix the roof at any time at Lucas Oil Stadium?
Well, it's not going to matter now because it's going to be cold.
Yeah, exactly. Just make sure it's closed. Make sure it
right.
stays closed.
Yeah, if it's not going to work, make sure it's closed when it's done. That's strange. That's twice?
Yeah, twice this
Mechanical?
year.
Is it software?
They claim this time that it's a software issue, yes.
They
I thought
claim.
before
That means
they
you
said
don't believe.
Well, I don't know what the problem is. That it's happened twice.
Is it mechanical if the software doesn't work so the mechanical works? I don't know.
That's a good question. Yes. Well, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Window was open.
Window was open. We had that. And it was a little bit slippery down there again. I'm still noting, like, every time it's been slippery on the turf, either the window or the roof has been open. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's a scientific reason behind it.
Does it get moisture?
I don't know.
I don't know when it gets chill.
Or the humidity goes up with it out there.
You notice it.
Yes,
you
I noticed it. I'm just saying. That could be a thing.
Fix it.
The Colts are getting set to take on the Houston Texans. First place in the AFC South on the line. Game will be broadcast Sunday if you're in central Indiana, 1 p.m. on CBS 4. Jonathan Taylor and DeForest Buckner have returned to practice, both on a limited basis on Wednesday, as Chap looks up on his phone to see what their status is. I assume they're both going to be out there again today on Thursday as we tape this podcast. I'll kind of run down the rest of the injuries. Jannard Avery, Jalen Carlisle, Josh Downs, Ryan Kelly, Chris Lamons, Michael Pittman Jr., and Braden Smith all did not participate Wednesday, while Ashton Doolin, Cam McGrone, and E.J. Speed were all full participants. What you got there?
Yeah, Brett Bensley, our
intrepid photographer reporter.
Our embedded reporter. Pitt practice, Downs practice, Buck practice, and JT. We need to get used to, I don't see, Braden Smith's back. We simply need to get used to the fact that Pitt's probably going to practice 1 day a week.
Yep.
Buck always gets a day off.
Yep.
We'll see how that goes.
Kelly's gotten days off.
Kelly's gotten days off. But Pitt and Braden Smith they're going to practice once a week.
Yep, and that's it. And you're going to have to live with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's normal now.
Right.
So
and that's we talked to Reggie about that today, and he never missed practice. Just never did. It was part of what made him what he was, but he understands that there's going to be maintenance with Pitt, and Pitt's probably a guy that can do that. I would be concerned with Downs missing steady time or AD. Well, he needs a day off. Well, why? Well, he's tired. Well, no. So, I just caution fans to not get too bent out of shape when you see the Wednesday, because it's been 10 players. I don't know.
Last week it was 9. That
a lot of
DNPs.
Yeah. Well, get used to it. The one that matters obviously is Thursday a little bit, but Friday tells you what's going to happen, so we'll see.
Yes. The Texans are dealing with their fair share of injuries themselves, especially on the defensive side of the ball, although there's certainly an important one or two on offense as well. Linebacker Azeez Al-Shair with a knee, wide receiver Steven Sims with a back, safety Jimmy Ward with a groin, wide receiver Robert Woods with a foot did not participate in Wednesday's practice. Defensive end Will Anderson with a chest injury.
He needs to take care of that chest, maybe take a week off.
Exactly. That sounds good to me. Defensive tackle Florunso Fatukasi with a shoulder injury. Easy for me to say.
Say it again.
Cornerback Kamari Lassiter with a shoulder injury.
You're not going to say it again, are you?
Linebacker Henry To'o with a concussion. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, all limited in participation. Were you trying to get my attention, Chap? I couldn't quite hear you there.
Go right ahead.
Okay, we'll continue. They were all limited in their participation.
And Nico Collins.
And Nico Collins is out. I believe he's on injured reserve right now.
He's missed 2 games.
Yes.
And he's still like 4th in the league in receiving yards.
Exactly. Like there's no better news for the Colts. You never want to see somebody injured. Like I'm not advocating for that. There's the stipulation out there.
Right.
Like there's no better news that Nico Collins is not playing.
He's owned them.
6 catches, 117 yards this
and the
past
Colts
week.
thought they did a pretty good job on him.
They said, like, you talked to Zaire Franklin in the locker room this week. Like, he was talking about their strategy in that game. He was just like, we're not going to let C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins beat us. That's why we feel we gave up a career day to Joe Mixon. Now,
213 yards
Joe Mixon's
rushing.
a great back, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. But we were just not going to let C.J. and Nico beat us. And then you could see him pause in his head there for a second, because what he was going to say, what I think he meant to say was, but they did anyway. And then he found somewhere.
Well, then he
else
said,
to
but
finish
then he
his
said, then
sentence.
Stroud, and the big completion was that first down to was it 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 7 to Collins, I think it was.
Yes, it was. It was to Collins.
And Jalen Jones had great coverage.
Yep.
But I thought, yeah, they did a good job on Collins. I went back and looked at 6 for 113 or whatever it was.
Yep, 117.
117. That's
not that great.
And that's a good day for you guys?
Yeah, right?
Really?
Better than some other days maybe have been, like week 18 of last year.
What was it, 190 something?
It was a lot. It was,
it was more than 117.
Yeah, but I mean, they still have some other good wide receivers back there too. You know, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz has had a pretty good season at tight end too, and then of course Joe Mixon, who went off for 30 carries for 156 yards, 159 yards, yes, and a touchdown in his first game. And he had a couple weeks off due to injury, but he was back last week and will be back this week, assuming nothing happens in practice. So though the Texans do have a couple players defensively who you might be a little concerned about, we'll see what happens on Sunday. And that offense is still going to be that offense that scored 29 points against you week 1. So C.J. Stroud, 24 of 32. So what is that? 75% completion percentage for 234 yards. 10 yards per completion, which is pretty good, and 2 touchdowns. So like you tried to limit Stroud and Collins and let Mixon go, but in the process you just let Mixon go, and Stroud was able to pick his moments, which the elite ones just do. They get the moments that need to happen, like the 3rd and long that you mentioned.
5 or 6 plays a game that a quarterback needs to make.
And that's what separated Stroud from having an average game to a very good game against you in that week. So the strategy just didn't work because Stroud beat you. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, you were darn close at the end. It's another one of the one-score games. Like you said, Chap, every game this year has been a one-score game.
Well, the Colts defensively were healthier.
They were.
First game because Juju was out there.
Juju was there.
Buck was out there.
Buckner was there.
And Kenny Moore's missed a couple games. And E.J. Speed was out there. So they'll be better. The personnel-wise, they'll be better this week with Buck coming back. And Kenny Moore played really well last week. He'd missed a couple of games, and he came back. I think that was his second game back. They've got a few players that they cannot play very well without, and Buck's one of them.
Let's take a look at the rankings for both teams across the NFL. The Texans are 14th in scoring, averaging 23.6 points per game. Colts are 18th in scoring, averaging 22.1 points per game. So both around the middle of the league. Texans 11th in total offense, averaging about 350 yards per game. Colts 16th, averaging about 330 yards
middle of the
per
league.
game. Yep, exactly. Right there in the middle of the league. Texans, though, a little bit better both times. Texans are 9th in passing yards, 227 per game, which, by the way, does not seem like a whole lot.
Right.
This has been a story a little bit in the NFL this year, that running is up, passing is down. Like, if the 9th ranked team in the NFL is only averaging 227 yards per game, that just lets you know that like things are cyclical in the league. They kind of rotate. Like the offense goes up, then the defense goes up to match. Then the passing game goes to a different level, and then defenses catch up with the pass and need to run a little bit more.
Look at the Chiefs and Mahomes.
Yep.
He's having if they were 3-3, they'd say he's having an awful year.
Yep.
But he makes the plays when he has to. But he's got like a ton of interceptions, not as many touchdowns, but it is around the league, and this is still a league where there's a bunch of really good young quarterbacks. Yet it's teams are like Baltimore. They're going to run the ball, though. Then Jackson throws 5 touchdown passes, but there's an emphasis on the run game, and why ever that is, I don't know, but there certainly is, and not as many explosives in the pass game.
As I was saying, Texans 9th in passing yards. Colts are 17th, averaging about 206 yards passing per game. Rushing, 14th and 15th. Texans 15th, Colts 14th in the NFL, at both averaging 4.5 yards per carry. So these offenses, Texans just a notch better than the Colts in just about everything. Running game, right about dead even. Defensively, Texans are 17th in points allowed. They're averaging 22.7 allowed per game. The Colts, Mike Chappell, are 12th in the NFL in points allowed per game.
I had to double and triple check that because I didn't believe it.
12th in points allowed per game, allowing 22.1 points per game. That number has gotten better over recent weeks, for sure. The Colts are 31st in rushing yards allowed, averaging 160 yards per game.
Give up 474. It's a tough sledding to get it down.
It certainly is. The Texans are 8th in rushing yards allowed per game, but still giving up 4.5 yards per carry at the same time. Texans 4th in passing yards allowed, so they are 2nd in total yards allowed. This has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. Colts are 23rd in passing yards allowed per game, and they are 29th allowed in total yards per game. Other rankings, Texans are +3 in turnover ratio. Colts are +2 in turnover ratio. And the average time possession, the Colts are still trying to claw back from that Week 1 game against the Texans.
And Week 2.
And the Week 2 game against the Packers. Colts are 32nd in time possession, only 26 minutes of time possession per game.
Okay, but it was 1955 the first two games.
It was, and the Texans are 2nd in the NFL in time possession, probably because they are still buoyed by that Week 1 showing against the Indianapolis Colts. But at the same time, still, they've been able to run the ball fairly well this year, and in general have had a good defense to get other opposing offenses off the field as well. So that's your quick rundown of both teams. The Colts opened as 4-point underdogs, according to various sundry online betting sites, and they're now
Bill Belichick is on some betting ads.
How about that?
I think I sit there and think, are you serious? This is where we are. That Bill Belichick. I can't think of who it is. Not FanDuel, but Bill
Caesars
Belichick.
Or BetMGM or whoever it is. They are now 5-point underdogs. So the betting market has put some cash on the Texans over the past couple days after, I guess, taking a look at that number and saying, yeah, you know what? The over-under opened at 47.5, but it's now at 46. So basically, people just don't think the Colts, the betting markets say the Colts aren't as good as what Vegas initially thought. So we shall see about that. So they're predicting what? Something like a 24 to 20, 25 to 20 ball game around that span.
Aren't the Colts like the best team in the league at covering the spread?
They have been doing very well this year. I don't know exactly what the number is, but that was a number I noted on, I think on a podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, was that they had covered maybe 4 or 5 or something like that, or maybe 4 or 4. I forget exactly what it was. But yes, that means that they're better than Vegas thinks they are. And so maybe that trend continues here in Houston this weekend, where Anthony Richardson had perhaps the best 2-drive stretch of his young career.
He showed you exactly what the Colts expect of him.
Yep, that was last year before he got that concussion and got knocked out and self-reported the concussion.
That was on him.
It was 100% on him, slowing down going into the end zone, thinking the play was over, and the play was kind of over.
You think a defensive player is not going to whack you when you get the chance?
Every chance they get, they're going to put a hit on you, and you got to count on that. So that's where the Colts are going into this weekend. I'll give my prediction first, and then Chap can go after me.
Let's just go ahead and have Matt pick too. We'll have him. The Colts winning like 40-0.
There you go. Matt says the Colts beat the Texans 40-0 and take over first place in the AFC South by some tiebreaker, whatever it might be.
Because we haven't looked that up yet.
Exactly. But I am hard pressed to pick the Colts this week, just because of recent history, because of what the Texans did to them the first time, and just because their 2 star players, DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor, are going to be back, I think, but not going to be 100% yet. They need to get back into the swing of things and kind of feel themselves around a little bit and get used to the game again. And so with your best players not at their best, I don't think they could surprise me. And with the Texans just having recent success in this rivalry and playing at home.
And coming off an awful loss.
Like, they're going to be paying attention. I think that the Texans win this game. I'm going to go 27-20 Texans, and the Colts come back at 4-4, and we'll have to try to get a win or two elsewhere during this really tough 5-game stretch.
They need to steal two in this stretch.
They do. I think that's a fair number to have a good shot at being in the playoff picture come the end of this year. Chap, what do you think for this game?
Yeah, I think Taylor might be more able to do more, because I think, again, we don't know what they do rehab-wise, but I think he's been going through some pretty strenuous things. Buck, I think he'll be on something of a pitch count. I don't know, 20 plays. I don't know. But I think this is the game the Colts can come away with. I don't think they will. I think Houston, I think Stroud, again, he had an awful game. He was 9 for something for like 80 yards, whatever his worst game. He's better than that. I haven't got to the point that I can trust Richardson yet. I can't. And I don't think the defense can keep this up, because this week they're playing a legitimate quarterback. I've got 30-17 Houston, and I think I can argue this is a game the Colts can get, and they need to steal a couple of games in this 5-game stretch. The Jets maybe Buffalo, I don't know, because the last 5 games are very, very gettable. But I just think going to Houston is too much, and 30-17, and we'll hold that 40-0 Matt prediction over his head.
Yes, we will, 100%. But maybe he comes back in a week or two and holds it over our heads. You never know. That'd be fantastic if the ghost of T.Y. Hilton appears.
When you have AR go down there with his clown mask,
right?
Yeah,
let's make it happen.
Sure.
That's that could be the one thing that propels the Colts to victory as they get set to take on the Texans this weekend in Houston. Broadcast here in Central Indiana on CBS 4, and be sure to tune in there for our Colts Blue Zone pregame show at 11:30 Sunday morning as well. You can follow Mike Chappell on Twitter at mchappell51 and read all his work online at fox59.com, cbs4indy.com. I'm Dave Griffiths. You can find me on Twitter at DaveG_sports. Follow us as a podcast at Colts Blue Zone. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.